My name's Christopher Irarrazabal. I'm a Miami-based filmmaker. Been out here for my entire life, and I make films about Miami. I make films about my life, about things I've been through. Became a filmmaker because I wanted to express myself. As a kid, there were films I wanted to see that I wanted to manifest and create. Like I had films like I liked. There was a film called Flubber with Robin Williams, and like it didn't come out until next year, but I wanted to see it now, so I took the initiative to try to make it myself. And I was pretty young. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and I just like got Jello and stuff like that, and I just put it together and tried to create the film myself using my dad's camera. So like with that, I just started using the camera at a really young age, doing skits with my sister and my friends, and then continued all through high school. And then as I went through college, I started doing film and perfecting my craft more. A lot of the films that influenced me when I was young were like they were like comedies, but a lot of them had like social messages or like relatable messages. Like some of my favorite movies were like The Mask. I remember being young and like seeing The Mask and feeling like I really identify with his character, being like this shy guy, but like having this alter ego where he was like super out there and like extroverted and like lived his true self when he put on the mask. And then seeing that, and then seeing like I was already a fan of that, and then I saw the Truman Show. Like when I saw they were making the Truman Show, I go, I love this concept. When I saw the movie, I loved it. And it was this guy, he's like, he lives his whole life to entertain and perform, and he's just living his life, and he has to choose like what he's gonna do with his life and how he's gonna continue, and once he realizes he's in a bubble. And just a lot of those films, a lot of Jim Carrey's movies like really influenced me because a lot of them have comedic tones, so they're entertaining, but at the same time like they have such strong social messages. I mean, we did like I had done a lot of skits and stuff like that, and I had done like short projects in school, like Obama. That was like that one was kind of a social comedy too.
They said, you have to make more jobs available to the American people. I said, why? They said, so that our citizens could pay their bills. I said, why not cut out the middleman?
Which was like based on like when Obama got in, a lot of people had expectations that he was gonna like change things, and he was almost like a superhero. Like you could call his name and he would show up and help you with anything.
Obama! Obama!
Our president is black, my Lambo's blue.
So doing that was the first time I really like wrote something and had people act out like what I wrote. And doing that, I realized like my writing was really strong when it came to like social messages and commentary. And the first movie I made after that was I Hate This Part. I think a lot of my films center around being like basically like an outcast or being misunderstood or just being like an outlier. I grew up with a lot of negativity as far as like not having that base of friends and family bonds. So it's like when it comes to making the films, it's like sometimes it's a commentary on either having it or not having it, you know. I think making movies is stressful and like it's tough because it's like you go through like pains where you're like, what's the point of this? Is this worth doing? Because you have to deal with so many different things when it comes to like locations and actor schedules and things like that. But like, like you know that in the end what you're doing has a purpose, and it's like when you feel understood, like when somebody watches the movie and they relate or they understand and they have a good time, you feel like accomplished because it's like, all right, like I had something in my head that I wanted to communicate, and I was able to communicate in a way where people feel better, they feel understood as well. So it's like speaking for the people, and it's just that communication makes you feel good because it feels like, okay, I was a misunderstood person. I communicated in a way where misunderstood people relate, so they feel like I'm speaking for them. So it feels like it feels like growth. Like it feels like from being the quiet person to being the person that's speaking for the quiet people. I would say like surrealist, but maybe it's like neorealism, because for me, like I like things to be as close to reality as possible. So like when it comes to it, sometimes it might take the form of like a reality show style, just because like I really try to keep it as close to real as possible. So it's like, I just want it to feel authentic to the experience of the way I see it when it happens to me or when I'm seeing it happen in real life. So it's like, it's a fuse of like the way I see reality and the way that other people see reality. So when you watch Basketball Friends or you watch most of my movies, you're going to kind of see like my POV. So like a lot of times it might be a dramatic situation, but I have a smile on my face because to me it's a funny situation. So when you see my movies, you see these like really high tension relationships or just small details and people just feeling, it's funny, even though it's like a real dramatic point, for certain people. So we had like the whole summer in order to like write something and draft up like proposal, basically like get everything in order and arranged. But the whole summer I didn't really have anything, and as things came up I started writing something, but then it felt too long. It felt like a feature length story, and I was gonna call it I Hate This Shit. But what happened was I was stuck because I knew I had maybe a week or two to like actually write a script before I'd have to pitch something. If I didn't pitch anything, I'd be graduating with no project under my belt. So I really wanted to try to do something. And I was stuck because I had to throw out that idea that I was working on. And I talked to my friend and she was like, just write something, like that's real, like write something that you're going through, because you have like all these different things going on, and you're good at telling those stories. So I just started writing like a couple things that had happened to me like recently, that were, the first one I started was the argument with my dad, and I just wrote it out as an exercise to see where I would get when I wrote that out. And once I wrote it, I realized like, oh, I can do scenarios. Like I can do 3 scenarios about dealing with tough situations as like a young person. So I wrote the next one. The next one was basically dialogue. It was all just dialogue, and it was just conversation. The third one was more inspired by like trying to get a job, and like it was more surrealist because it was more like what I've been going through, but like just more exaggerated.
Look, I swear I'll be the best employee you have if you just give me a chance.
It's 5 o'clock. What, did you just wake up 15 minutes ago? Your shirt's wrinkled. You don't even look like you want to have this job. You only look like you're pretending to get this job so that your mom can stop bitching and that she can keep paying for your shit.
Look, I don't understand what your problem is with me.
It was interesting because it was just my entire life. Like it was things I'd gone through so much, like growing up, just writing it. And I felt like I could write like 300 of those. But at the time I was like, I need to do this now because I'm about to graduate and go on. And I want to leave that in the past. I don't want to take those insecurities and those issues into the adulthood. So it was like a lot of venting of like things I had been going through, and writing it helped me kind of get over a lot of those things too. And because like sometimes you get stuck and you don't know where to go as a young person and what like the future is going to hold for you. So once you like vent it out and leave it there, you can kind of criticize yourself and see things from like a different perspective, where you grow from that by writing it and really like looking at yourself in the mirror. Like you grow and like you realize like, okay, so looking back, I just see growth. Like I see a younger person. I see like more angry. I see like more frustrated and misunderstood. I was at the time I was watching Louis, and there was a scene in Louis where he confessed to one of his friends, Pamela. She does the voice of Bobby in The King of the Hill. And like that scene was like maybe like 12, 15 minutes. And it was like a one-shot scene. And it was just him confessing that he likes her. And she's like, it's not going to work. Like, you're my friend. It's over. Like this and that. And I was so gripped by that scene that I was like, wow, like what you can do with just conversation, with just dialogue. Like, so with that, I was so immersed by it that I was like, if I told like some of the stories like straight up how they happened, maybe people will relate. So it's like, once I wrote the first one, like I felt like I had so, like it felt like easy, like, okay, this is the format. But I didn't want it to be a full like 3-act structure that all came together. I just wanted it to be 3 separate scenes. Like I said, like if you could take, like I feel like in the future, people aren't gonna watch full movies. Like, you know how people like, they don't listen to albums no more, they just listen to singles and they download their favorite songs, not the whole album. So I was like, look at all these great scenes that we watch on YouTube. So I'm like, if you take the best scenes of a movie and just make those, then maybe you'd have a really compelling like short film. So I was like, let me just write the hardest 3 scenes I could think of, you know? So I did those, and then I presented it, and I brought it to one of my teachers that I respected her opinion, and she read it, and she just told me like, you need to end this, you know? You don't end things, you just leave everything open. You need to find a way to bring this all together. And I told her I didn't want it to be like a cliche, like everything comes back together. She's like, well, figure it out. And I had the idea of like basically tying everything in a positive way. Like I gave it an ending that didn't necessarily resolve everything that happened, but it gives you a positive outlook in a movie that just feels very like grim and like empty as far as like the potential. Well, like the relationship with like Manny and Alex started when we did I Hate This Part, because they're guys I went to school with. Alex, I didn't know that well when we went to school, but later when I was casting for I Hate This Part, Manny had said he wanted to start acting. So I wrote a role for him in I Hate This Part. I wanted him to be the manager, but when we did the audition, there was a guy that just came in and killed it, and he murked it, and I told him, I don't think you're gonna be the manager, bro.
You want to know? You want to know what my problem with you is? It's that you suck. Plain and simple. You suck, and you know you suck. You put 10% into everything you do, and you say you want to do better, but you enter every opportunity with the worst possible attitude. You basically cockblock yourself, and you sit around blaming everyone but yourself instead of fixing the problem. You're lazy.
But I saw like an anger in him that I related to, as far as like a frustration. And I said, like, if you really work hard at this, I feel like you could be the lead. Like, because like I related to his frustration. So I was like, if you could just learn the lines, I think you could do this. So he did it, and I brought Alex in as playing my friend Sergio in I Hate This Part. Yeah, I think like I Hate This Part is, a lot of people love I Hate This Part, and they think it's like the best one I did. The thing is, because it was like the first one I did, I was really conscious when we were making it. I was like, it's gonna be really tough to make another film after this, because I had support from Miami-Dade, like the students and the people that came help, and we didn't need a lot, but what we had helped. Like everything went so flawlessly. I was able to just literally be a director that I knew it was gonna be harder once I separated from school and I had to do this completely by myself, like with no help and no like extra like hands. So like that was like a personal movie, but it just felt so like it felt so deep, and I didn't want to be too deep. I wanted to keep things light. And if so, like moving on, I try to do like more comedy and just go in different genres to like really show the potential that I had to tell different types of genres. I didn't like, after that we did like NREM, which was like a horror with Manny, just to try to switch it up and do something completely different. And then we got into like Basketball Friends and stuff like that. But it was like, I was just trying to show diversity in the genre, because people were starting to kind of take me serious as a dramatic person, and I always thought I was gonna be a comedy person. So like I just tried to switch it up and do something different, but people still relate to that film like really strong. The thing is, going back, it's tough because it's like seeing yourself speak when you're younger. Like it's like you're looking at it and you're criticizing the way, because I just really put my personality in it so strong that it's like you're doing too much, you're venting too much, like you're being too emotional, which is dope because I see younger kids, and like I see that frustration and that angst and like the emotion that they think their whole life's gonna end if this thing doesn't work out, you know, if they don't get the job or the girl doesn't text back. And like as you grow up and you mature, you realize like nothing's really the end of the world. But that's such strong material to make films about, because people relate to the end of the world more than just like, okay, this is just today and tomorrow's gonna be a different story, which is more how I make things now. It's more subtle. Like things aren't the end of the world. Things are just another story. Like there's gonna be another story, you know. Well, basically, like, after we did I Hate This Part, like, Manny was down to keep acting, so we decided, like, let's try to do something by ourselves. Like, I had just realized the power of, like, a DSLR because we used it for I Hate This Part, so I was like, yo, we could, I bought a T2i, and I was like, yo, let's shoot something, you know, and let's do it with music. We don't have to focus too much on dialogue. I didn't want to do as much dialogue because I felt like we did so much dialogue and I hate this part. I wanted to make something that was a little bit more like subtle and music driven. So we kind of collaborated together on that script, like on that idea. And it came up with like the idea of NREM, which was like this like sleep cycle thing. And it was just, in a way, like when you write for like a long period of time, you kind of like go through this like days where you're like kind of awake, kind of sleeping and stuff like that. And like with him, we wanted to make this horror, and we were like, I had like my cousin play his sister, his little girl, and like we were just shooting, like we were just trying to make a horror like for fun pretty much. And I guess the thing to take away from that film for me was like as we were making the horror, I kept trying to add more to it and just make it deeper and more personal. And that's why I added like this sort of this message. I feel like really what it's about, even if people don't get it or not, like a lot of what it meant to me was just like he's haunted by like the fact that his sister killed herself after their dad died, and that he just didn't know how to be like a supportive like older brother because he was going through his own things, and he starts taking sleeping pills or whatever. And like he you know, it's like we try to do something in a different way, and like it wasn't necessarily chronological. There were a lot of things that was like you can't really differentiate between the flashbacks and like the time that it's taking place. But really, like to me, it was about like family and stuff like that, and like, you know, like grieving, and like sometimes you're not there for people when they need you, and then you kind of regret it. So you're like haunted by the fact that like you like he wasn't there for his sister, so he was kind of like haunted by the fact that he can't sleep. He's taking the pills because he can't sleep because of the fact that his sister killed herself, like after their dad died, and he wasn't there for it. Like pretty much what it was about. Yeah. It was like a stepping stone, because the thing is like I think Manny wanted to be a dramatic actor and do more stuff, and like we just wanted to keep working. And it's like I guess what I learned from that was like, okay, I thought I could do it alone, because I was like, after I Hate This Part, I was like, bro, like if all you need is a DSLR, you don't need that many lights, we could do this by ourselves. So we did that. But then when it came, because of it, there was a slight like the quality wasn't as great as I Hate This Part. So people were kind of like, oh, but it's not as good as I Hate This Part. So it was like, all right. So when it came time to do the next project, which was Basketball Friends, I tried to hit back some of the people that helped me out with I Hate This Part, which was the cinematographer, the lighting guy. I tried to get the producer that helped me out, but she was busy doing other stuff. So it's like I didn't get the entire crew that I had on I Hate This Part, but I got enough people to like make Basketball Friends and start it. And my thing was like I just hope that I could keep those people. I was like, if we can make a whole series in the quality of I Hate This Part, like it'll take off and go crazy. The thing is, after we did the pilot, I couldn't get the guys back, like even with money or nothing. They just weren't down to like continue doing. I don't know why. So it's like I ended up being alone, and I had to figure out how to try to replicate the quality and continue on a high level without having really any crew or help, you know. There's certain things where it's like you do it and then like it gets you to the next idea, or like just to be like, all right, I need to be a little bit more like outgoing when it comes to the next one, because like like I was like, I didn't need nobody. We didn't really need a budget for I Hate This Part. But then like when I did the NREM alone, I was like, if I had more people, this probably would have been a little bit like more well receped, like stuff like that. But it was a collaboration too, because I think Manny started the idea, like the script, because he wanted to do a horror, and I was like so thankful for the fact that he helped me with I Hate This Part, that I was like, all right, we'll do something you want to do. So he started the script. I tried to continue it. In the end, it was weird because it was hard to find a middle ground. Like I didn't really know what he wanted. He just wanted to do something, but he wanted to do something like horror driven. So when I wrote it, it was a back and forth of trying to make sure that like he was cool with it. But in the end, I realized like I just got to do it myself. Like I got to write the whole thing, because if you make movies for somebody else's opinion, you end up like stuck, because you're like, all right, like you're not even happy with the thing, and I tried as best to like make it for you, you know, so that you would be happy. So it was a collaborated film. It wasn't necessarily like my film. It's just I made it my film because I try to add more of my point of view. So we did my film out of college, my thesis project, which was I Hate This Part. When we did that, the girl that did the credits, she credited Aníbal's character with Basketball Friend. And I didn't do the credits. I was working on the film, like editing the film. She was assigned to do the credits by the class. So when she did that, the guys saw it and they were laughing, because they were like, you're the basketball friend. And they were clowning him. And they did it so much, you know, they would get a little video sent in to him. And then when they did that, it made me laugh, because I was thinking like, yo, what if you made a whole film just about the basketball friend? And they were like, yo, you should do that.
Oh, but if you guys don't want to get it, man, I really need a boys' night out. This whole breakup thing is really depressing me.
Oh, you have a girlfriend?
It's not more, man.
Oh, because I was going to say, it's more of like a couples thing. So, I mean, you don't fifth wheel and everything.
All right.
And they didn't expect me to really do it, but I just wrote it, and I was like, I like the idea of doing it from like the point of view of the extra or something, or the person who isn't the star. And like when we went to film it, you know, it was a different thing, because I think Aníbal's so charismatic as he's so charismatic as a personality. He doesn't come off as the shy guy in the corner. He comes off as a full fleshed out character.
This is my friend, Aníbal.
Hey, what's your name?
Lady.
Oh, like Lady in the Tramp?
So,
My point of view was like they keep cutting him off and they're not allowing him to be a star. That these two jerks are taking over the limelight of the show when the show's supposed to be about Aníbal. So I think even though I didn't feel like I was successful in telling that concept that I had in mind at first, I felt like it still came out really funny and really interesting, and it started this world of like these Miami friends. So doing that, it was like it sort of became a show of the spin-off characters. So like every episode we'd introduce a new character, and it kind of be like them trying to like in a sense fight for screen time, or like break their way in through these narcissistic guys that think that they're the star, you know.
Come on, man. We're not the same people. We can evolve, Joel. We're not just a bunch of cartoon characters wearing the same clothes and shit.
yeah, yo, we change our clothes, and we continue to improve on our past behaviors. What are you guys even saying?
You know, like as we were fleshing out for the short and really trying to give the characters some background, because the actors asked like, what about my character? What is he? What does he do? And I was like, so we would make it up as we go along, but it was like, then I was like, we could pretty much do a web series. I just have to write more episodes, and like, where would it continue from? And I had a friend over there that like, I had done it, and he liked I Hate This Part, and I asked him what he thought, and he goes, man, I mean, you're just making another short film, like, you should try to do something else. And I'm like what? And he's like, just something longer, you know, like be more consistent, whether it's a full film or it's a web series. Just try to do a bigger project that's gonna, you know, like you want to evolve and you want to try things that are gonna be, more challenging or bigger. So I was like, we could do a web series. Like, let's see how it goes. So it was like pretty much just kind of a challenge to try to do something on a bigger scale and like continue what we started. And after a while, I found it kind of like fun, because it's like every time you do another short film, you got to change characters and you got to like reinvent and create this whole backstory. But once you have like a pilot, or you have like a set standard of 5 different characters that have lives, you realize you can kind of branch out to other people's lives. So it's easier to continue than it is to than to start brand new. As we were making the series and stuff like that, like I realized like people really like the Miami stuff. Like they like I don't say like they like the characters and the caricature of like people from Miami, like literally, bro, and like this and that. But when I started that, it was kind of a satire on that. But then I felt like people were starting to become like a little bit like repulsed by the characters. They felt like kind of like these guys are really jerks, and they didn't want to watch it. So I realized like I had to like humanize them and make them more likable, even if they're still narcissistic or they're jerks. In a way, make them more likable and more lighthearted. So it's like when I did that, I was trying to basically take the negative things about people in Miami and try to turn it into a positive and embrace it. So like it was just like being more yourself, and everybody's from Kendall. So I wanted to represent Kendall, because everything else I see is like, when you talk about Miami, people are like, oh, you're a Miami Beach person, or you're like you're from South Beach, and like, but seeing things like, I would see like Miami Beach is a staple because they made it a staple. They go, this is the building Scarface was shot in, and now this is what Miami is. So it's like, if we show certain parts of Kendall, we can make Kendall something like where people go, oh, this is where they shot this scene, or like this and that. Like, so it's like just trying to create the character of Kendall and like the location, and make it a thing where people are excited about it, because this is where I'm from. So it's like I want people to know where I'm from, and like and know that it's a real place, and not just go, oh, you're from South Beach. It's like, I'm not from South Beach, you know. When we did the first pilot of Basketball Friends, I had tried to bring back the crew I worked with in college on. I hate this part. The thing is, it was only 2 guys, and I saw what they were doing, and I was like, I'd love to have them work with me, but it's time consuming, and I don't have the money to try to like really keep them there or find substitutions. So I was like, if I have to do it, I'll just buy the equipment and do it myself. The hardest thing is getting the actors available too sometimes. So it's like, you don't want to like add trouble with crew and everything like that. So I tried. I would text people. I'd give them a month. I'd text them back again. Like, would you be free this month? When I didn't hear no response, I was just frustrated. I'm like, you're not going to stop me from evolving and continuing to be better. Like, I need to do this for myself, like regardless if people help or not. So I bought the equipment and I tried to learn how to do it myself, and it was a process. And I was like unafraid to do it myself, even if the quality went lower. I was like, I'm gonna learn how to be as good as them or better, so that I don't have to depend on them for my own success. Like take their rejection as a step that to just quit. So I took time to like try to figure out how to do it by myself. I got mics. I found ways to do it myself, and then by the time we did the 5th episode, I realized like, okay, we can't do everything we want, but we have to learn how to substitute the things we can't do for things that are gonna be more entertaining or funnier or improv. So anytime we couldn't figure out a way to do a certain scene, I'd be like, let's change it and let's just improv and figure it out in a different way. And I think of basically B and C plans for everything. So this is my script. This is the A plan. If that goes out the window, this is the B that we can shoot in this location and do it this way. So we just swap things. And then when it came time to doing the full feature, I was like, let's just do it the way I ended up with on the last point. I'll try to get more help, but like if nobody helps, ain't nothing I could do. We don't have that many resources out here in Miami, and it's hard to find really, really good people. So it's like, whatever, man. If I can get these talented actors, then that's fine. Like I'll do what I can with what I got, and just try to tell an entertaining and funny story. Like if the characters are compelling and the story is compelling, a lot of times people will kind of like look the other way if the cinematography is shaky, or like you got to try to get the sound as good as possible. But it's like if it's not great, I mean, what you gonna do? Stop? Like you just got to keep moving and like try to evolve and find ways. Technology is getting better, and we're having so many things. But when we started, like a DSLR was the only option for a low budget person doing it by themselves. And you know, like things are getting better, but it's just like we have to evolve through it. Like we can't just like be stagnant and try to wait for help and people that, you know, you never know if they're gonna come. I waited when we first started Basketball Friends. That's why there was so much lag, because I was waiting for people to become available. I was waiting to try to get more help. I just said whatever. By the time we shot in the theater, it was like, I don't need nobody. I'll do it myself. Like, could use help, would love it, but it's like once you accomplish something that everybody says is impossible, you realize like nothing's really that impossible. Like you just need to be patient. Satire. Satire, like friendship. Like it's strong on friendship. Yeah, it's a satire, but it's really my point of view. Like it's literally my life. Like it's the way I see everything. Like I watch the movie and I'm like, this is how everything looks to me. People see it and they're like, it's kind of exaggerated. I'm like, I think everything's exaggerated. I see every conversation as an exaggerated conversation. After we did Basketball Friends, everything kind of goes into each other. After we did Basketball Friends, the 5th episode, I left it at a cliffhanger because I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get the cast back. Everybody was going a different direction. But I felt like we made a lot of mistakes when we did Basketball Friends thematically with the characters. And I was like, you know, if I started this brand new as a completely different thing, I feel like I could ace it with the things I learned, the technology, the way of shooting. So I wrote Powers in a way because I felt like extremely like independent. Like I was like, yo, we could do anything. I've done drama, I've done comedy, I've done horror. You know, sci-fi was something I never thought I would do. Like, but I was doing so much social commentary in my films that I realized like it's not that different. I freestyle write, so like I'll just start writing, and sometimes I'll come somewhere where I'm like, wait, this is crazy. This is actually an interesting idea. And I was just writing ambitiously. I go, so what if we can't, like we'll challenge ourselves to write the craziest thing and see where it goes. So I wrote it and I got to the end of it and I was like, this is crazy. And I was like, you know, I'm not a super big fan of special effects. I like things to be like natural, practical effects. So I was like, even if it looks cheesy, it's a comedy. It's for fun. It's just for jokes. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I'll try to find people to do special effects. And then I didn't find anybody to help, so I did what I could myself. Growing up, like we had Power Rangers, we had Beetleborgs, we had all these shows that I grew up on where like these kids get powers. And there was this concept of like powers, like, oh, we got powers, like we're super cool, we got powers, like we can do whatever. And like with that, I was like, you know, we can make a satire, like a 90s type of satire.
Of course, anyone given it a regular amount of power would lose it.
Yeah, you can't just give one person advantage over everyone else. That just messes up the whole natural balance of things.
It's like, this kids get powers, what happens next? And then you're like, who gave them the powers? And it's like, what are the powers? Why can't we all have powers? Like, it starts as a joke, like most of my things, but then it goes to the deeper concept of like, what do powers mean? And then we talk about like the institutional powers and like, why can't everybody have powers? Not everybody's ready to have powers. People aren't matured as humans. My philosophy just on things in general. So it's like, I feel like in a subtle comedic way, I actually am able to touch on like the way I actually feel about people in general and like the world. Like, you know, why should we have powers if we're not already utilizing the power we do have in a positive way, you know?
We have had the advantage over you humans for trillions of years, and yet it does not interfere with our cohabitation.
We have lived among you for the greater part of your civilization, and we have never had a problem. It always seems to be that you cause your own problems.
Michael, I met Michael after we did the first episode of Basketball Friends, so he was so enthusiastic to try to act, but I didn't have a role for him yet. So when I wrote it, I go, look, we talked about a character in the first episode called Romy, but I'm like, but I'm not ready to get into that character yet. I'm still trying to flesh out the characters we have. But he was always enthusiastic and supportive and wanted to help me because he believed in me. So it's like, I was like, let's take a break from Basketball Friends and let's do Powers. So I kind of wrote Powers for him, and then I brought Franzi in, and like I did it with the people that were super enthusiastic. I go, these guys, like they have passion to do this. When it came to Basketball Friends, they were people that were helping me out. They weren't as ambitious to be actors. So I was like, now I'm working with people that want to be actors. We got David Gia. He was enthusiastic to be an actor. And it's like I was working with people who actually wanted to be there. And it's like it wasn't to slight the people I worked in Basketball Friends, but I was just like, I need to evolve and work with people that are like really want to take this serious and go further, because I need to keep moving as a director. After I made I Hate This Part, I realized like movies have power. Like you can really you can change people's like day, or you could change people's life because you just have a lot of power to speak things into an existence and like relate to people. So when I made Powers, I was like I was realizing like Basketball Friends is about friends and stuff like that. But when we started, it was kind of negative. Like it felt like I was making fun of people that I didn't like in Miami when we started Basketball Friends. But I realized like I had to confront these people. These people are my audience now. Like I'm making a show about Miami people. Miami people are gonna be the first people to judge it and say if it's real, or if they agree, if they like it or don't like it. So I try to like stop hating on Miami people and start embracing it. And then like when I did that, I realized like we can't do this. Like we're in too much of a negative space to be negative. Like we have to like literally make things that are positive. So with Powers, I really wanted to show people like just positivity. Like I just trying to push the positivity forward in like a quirky way. That it didn't feel preachy, but it was just fun. Like and give a positive message, because I realized like subtly the way I can tell a story is like it'll seep into you, where like once you finish you relate to that concept and that ideal thinking. Like so many people related to I hate this part, they were coming to me like they were antisocial, and I go, you're not antisocial. But that made people want to be antisocial because everybody relates to like going through those deep emotions. So it's like with Powers, it's like you have the power. I felt like I had the power. So now when you watch the film, like now you have the powers. And I was trying to encourage local people around me, like other filmmakers and actors, that like you have the power. Like you can make a film like this. It was just me. It was just me and my friends, It's like just trying to influence people that you have the power. You have the power to support us. You have the power to do it yourself as well. So it's like, it was just a very freeing, because instead of feeling like, okay, I need crew and I need cast and I need all these things to make a movie, it's like you can do it by yourself, So Powers is about having power. Like it's about me having power, and it's about like empowering ourselves, It's like, I guess after I did Powers, like I felt really empowered, because the way I started writing that, I didn't understand where it came from, and then I was like, oh, like there's so much inside of me I don't really understand. So I started becoming like very like just in touch with my subconscious, and I was like realizing like if you just like freely write or freely think, you come up with ideas that are in the back of your head that you're not even really aware of, kind of like a dream. So basically I had gone over to Franzi's house, and like he was working on 5417, and he was kind of like in like this weird daze. Like he was just kind of like this and that, and like I kind of understood it because it's like when you don't sleep a lot or you're just like working on things a lot, you kind of like half awake, half asleep thinking and like talking. So it's like he asked me, he's like, yo, he's like, who's McClintock? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you told me about it. I'm like, no. He's like, didn't you post something on Facebook? I'm like, no. And I'm like, I don't know what he was talking about. He's like, nah, man. He's like, I just keep seeing that name somewhere, like on Facebook or somewhere. I've seen the name McClintock. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. But we were laughing, and it just, the way he phrased it to me was so strange. And I was watching this show called Wayward Pines, which is kind of like a Twin Peaks spinoff, but I never seen Twin Peaks at that time. But like Wayward Pines is like everybody would just be so mysterious, like, who are you? What are you doing here? And like I was just finding it like super funny. So to do like a genre that was basically, it was basically like mystery suspense, but in a comedic angle. That's why we were laughing about it, and friends was like, hey man, write it up and we'll do it. And like I went and I wrote it up, and then like I was like, let's do it. And I found it a good opportunity to work with Franzi as an actor. I worked with him on 54, but I hadn't really done anything with him like solo. So we worked with him as a serious actor. I brought in like Plus, Amy, Jesse. That's where I met Jesse. I never met Jesse before we did that scene. And like when we shot the scene in the supermarket, that's when I first met him. I got to know him, and I was like, oh, he does skits, he does photography, he's very talented. So I was like, oh, like these are like people I want to keep around me, like people that are like very multifaceted. So like we did McClintock, and it was cool because it was like a very subconscious like film. Like it came out of nowhere and then it continued out of nowhere. Like the concept came from like subconscious, and the movie is about that, about like kind of suppressing your subconscious. Like if you try to suppress your subconscious, it's gonna come back to you. So like every time you hear McClintock or like somebody comes up to him, it's sort of like a reminder that he's ducking something, that he needs to face that problem in his life and mature. So like when you see like Amy come up to him and propose to him, it's like when you have like a relationship but you never want to move it forward, it's like eventually it's going to come up to you and it's going to catch you.
I've been thinking about this a lot and planning and thinking, and I think that we should definitely get married. Shh. Jason, would you please do me the honor in becoming Mr. Voorhees?
Like kind of like the fear of like a monster coming and getting you. And that's like what happens is like in the end he faces his fear and the fear runs away because the fear isn't going to kill you. It's just it's scary, but it's like you get over it and like you move on and like you become woke, like you become, you know, like there's this whole thing about the glasses in it too, you know. No, this takes place like in our life. Like it takes place in like reality.
Because the thing is,
like
it's like
Homestead.
Because there's a lot of weird things going on. I mean, everybody in the film, like, you know, I know this was an acting choice, but everyone is like just robotic and just not, almost non-humanized. Yeah. Like the way they talk and the way they deliver stuff, and like, you know, you have characters that go on these deep physiological speeches about life, and you start to wonder, like, is this like, is the like, you know, is like the place that they're at, is this like a real like location, or is this like all a dream, or is this like an alternative universe? So that's something that I wanted to like just look into, like, because McClintock, I will say, it's a very weird film.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it's weird to people that don't see the world like the way we see it. Like when I talk to Franzi, like the way McClintock is actually more real to like how our lives are. Like people come up to us randomly and start talking, and like I had witnessed like Franzi's life to so much of an extent that I related, and I realized like this is like kind of how our life is. Like we're living with so many people in my house that I would just come downstairs to get something to drink and somebody would pop up and I was like, I don't know who this person is, but it's just a new person, you know. And it's like, it's scary. Like you see people come by, you know exactly who they are, and it's just like, who are you, or like what's going on? So it's like that concept, like it's me like relating to Franzi, but also bringing like my point of view from like conversations I have with other people. But it's so real. It's like you never been on the bus and a homeless guy starts speaking to you, like, and some of the stuff he says makes sense, and some of it you're like, what is he talking about? But it's like to me, like I watch it, I'm like, this is reality. Like none of it looked like too crazy or like fictionalized, like, you know. They don't like, the thing is like when you start creating stuff, you're creating like films or writing stuff that's based on your perspective of like of what you've seen other films. So you're like trying to make a comedy because you love comedy. But once you really write a lot and you start creating a lot, you're trying to really speak from your point of view and your perspective and like bring to it what your perspective is. So after doing like Basketball Friends and like doing Powers and these movies that like were like, they were my perspective, I wanted to go deeper into like the scary part of the perspective of being like a filmmaker, an artist that's like literally living with like these, it's like we have our dreams, but our dreams are also like our nightmares sometimes too. You're living in that dream world, like you're living in like a dream, and you're living in La La Land in your subconscious. So it's like people who are creatives or who are filmmakers or artists, I feel like they always really kind of understand what it's about, but other people, they don't always, because they see it more as like they see it as like a horror film, like it's too exaggerated, or it's like a horror movie. Like they don't always understand it, but it's most of creatives kind of like they get it because it's like they understand metaphor. Like it's a metaphor, and it's a movie that works on metaphor, and metaphor becomes reality. Like, so it's personified fear. So it's like if people don't get it, usually I just feel it's just because they don't have like a wider they don't have as wide of a palette for genre as I do when it comes to like noir and like Twin Peaks suspense, like thriller, like all like weirder things, you know. And like that's just a different genre. Like I've done comedy, horror, I've done drama, but it's like that one's just its own genre, and like that's why I'm like, not everybody's as familiar with that genre. If you try to suppress your fears and anxieties, they're gonna come to you in a dream or in reality, and dreams are reality when you live in your dreams. Yeah. Yeah, like after you like write and direct like your own stuff a lot, like eventually like it's like you know yourself, so it's like you know your voice, so it's like all right, it could be good to try directing something outside of your point of view and see how that goes and see like what works and what doesn't work. And my friend Sergio, he's I've known him for a long time, so it's like he just asked me for a favor. He's like, if you know, like if I wrote something, would you direct it? You know, like would you help me shoot it and this and that? And I said, yeah, but it has to be good. Like we're gonna have to work on it, make sure that it's like worth doing. I'm not just gonna do it just because you asked me to. So it's like he presented me with the concept, and I realized like a lot of my stuff is like really rambly, and it's just like a lot of like free thought, like it's just like freestyle thought. So it's like with him, he actually had a concept that was a little bit more concrete, that was kind of like about suicide and stuff like that.
Imagine a place with no time and no disappointment.
What do you think? What do you think?
Or whatever, but it was still metaphorical. So I was like, I feel like I can shoot this and make it look really good, even though he's a first-time writer. So like we kind of collaborated, but really he wrote the script, and he has his own style. And I thought like people would see me work like my style with his writing, and see me more as like a candidate to be hired. Like, okay, you can be a DP on my film, or you can direct my film if you can direct other people's writing other than yourself. It really taught me like how you, as a director, you need to like really keep your hand on the control, because anytime I would loosen up and allow him to like add a song or try to do things a certain way, I'd just be so discontent with it that I was like, I don't even want my name on this anymore. So it's like I realized like I have to even write it, because before I was like, I don't want to have to do everything, but it's like I need to write it because his voice is not telling the story in a way that represents me, right? Like a lot of people were like, what happened with that, you know. There were a lot of people that were like, why don't you make I Hate This Part 2, or do more I Hate This Part type stuff, and I stayed away from it for so long, doing Basketball Friends and Powers and different McClintock, different genres, that I was like, all right, let's kind of find our way back to that genre where it's like sort of a drama, sort of just like conversational dialogue. But when we did I Hate This Part, I felt like I went in too strong. Like I did 3 parts that if you would have separated them, they could have been 3 strong short films. So I was like, what if we just did it simpler, like just made something that was like, this is just one conversation, and I can write different short films as just conversational pieces. And it was just something I was going through, struggles to find myself. So it was an exercise, but it was also to do something in that genre of drama and spoken conversational pieces. I was trying to give people what I thought they wanted, which was just that clever dialogue and stuff like that clever perspective.
Have you ever thought about maybe applying to be a writer somewhere for TV or something?
Yeah, I guess I'm just afraid that I might get writer's block or some shit. Make a fool out of myself.
You never know till you give it a chance, man.
I hate giving things a chance.
In that one, you really see the divide of the way an artist thinks and the way maybe a normal person who works a 9 to 5 thinks, where it's an artist is introverted, trying to better themselves, and is just stuck on where is this gonna take me? They're just very internally frustrated. But then a regular person is also in a sense frustrated because they're trying to think bigger. They're like, where should we go? Should we go to Paris? Should we broaden our horizons? And you see that even the guy who seems like he knows, he's more confident in his lifestyle, even he doesn't really know what do they do in France and what's the point of traveling. It's a conversation I have with Sergio a lot. That kind of represents me and Sergio having these late night conversations at diners as far as where are we gonna go in our life, you know? And we challenge each other. Do you think you know better than me what we're doing in life? And in the end, we're both confused, but we're still friends that are seeking a higher level of consciousness and structure in our life. Working on a lot of other stuff. I was editing Dine In and a whole bunch of other stuff to release, and those felt like we worked so hard on it, and I wanted to do something that was going to be simple. And I had been watching these films, like A Ghost Story, where it was there'll be these really long shots. There'll be 2-minute shots where it's literally just an actor acting in a shot about grief and stuff like that. So we did that. I kind of came up with the concept Brittany was coming in for a couple days. She wanted to shoot something, and it was all right, let's put it together, these 2 actors, and we did something about relationship and loss and stuff like that, and we made it just short. And the whole concept was it's gonna be not really too much sound. It was just gonna be the sound of the worlds and stuff like that, no dialogue, and it was gonna be 1 shot for each scene. So it's every scene was just 1 shot, and then it would go to another scene. So it was very simple way to shoot, but it was a simple way to edit. So it's the next day I already finished editing it. So it was a super quick process, and it was just to show off the cinematography and show off how much you can do with so little, you know. Yeah, it's just simplicity. If you set up a good shot, a really good cinematography. If you just set up a really good shot and you leave it and you just let an actor act, you get really good. It just feels real, and it allows you to observe certain things that you might not see in a movie that's heavily edited. You just get these brief moments that seem very real, and it's cool when you don't give context to necessarily what's happening and what they're talking about. People dig deeper into the emotion and the facial gestures and what they're visually seeing. And with Mike and Brittany, they're both very they're both very expressive actors, so it's like you don't have to say anything to kind of read their mind and see what they're going through. I like working with creative people because like I like in my movies I like to infuse like a lot of improv and stuff. So like with that, like I like to bring people that have their own ideas as well. Mike's always really like positive, down to work, and Brittany's the same way. Like they don't ask for too much. Like, oh, you need to bring me this. Yeah, like they don't have like all this weight on it. They're just like ready to go and try something new, and like they see the vision of like it's just a working process of trying new things, new genres, new types of stuff, and we just work well together because we're like open to try new stuff, you know. It was good, but it was just like every project is just like a moment in time. Like for me, like everything's just like how I'm feeling at the moment, or what's like it's just like a time capsule of like what the concept or the idea that was like the most interesting to me at the moment. So it's like it just gets more reaction because it's more of like a film that people can relate to as like regular people. Like some of my stuff is about creative people or about like more ambitious characters, but like that one's really just about a relationship and a breakup, and I think everybody can kind of relate to that concept of being like just like sad or just mourning like a relationship that ended. And it's just very open to interpretation too, so it's like people can kind of like put themselves in it. So like when they like it is good. It's just like it was quick. Like we shot it in a day, edited it the same day, released it the next day. So it was like some projects you spend 6-7 months like writing, editing, and then you try to find a way to put it out, and people either like it or don't like it. And sometimes you do it in a day and people love it. Like you write it. I didn't have a script for this one. I just wrote like bullet points of like what's gonna happen in every scene, and I just told them improv. Like you just got broken up with. Give him. I said give him something. It could be a ring. It could be a sweater. Give him something to say that to symbolize that the relationship's over, and then just walk away. And it was just like simple direction, and they took it, and people brought to it as viewer like what they interpreted, and they like it, and that's good. It just shows me that like sometimes like I overthink things so much. It's like the simplest things work really effectively. You know.
All right, and that's it.
Okay, let's do it.